When you work in labor and delivery, it's a happy place. It's full of excitement and full of drama, positive drama in most cases. So when you're looking after a couple that won't experience that high of a live birth, there's a huge emptiness there.
I've been working in obstetrics for over 10 years, and I've probably been involved in thousands of births, but I could recall vividly every family I've been with who experienced a loss. I could tell you what room they were in, who was involved, what the parents were doing, so you never ever forget. You never forget them.
When you tell people where you work, they say, oh, it's such a happy, happy, happy place. And you say, for the most part, yes, it is a happy place, but there are sad times.
When a patient comes into triage because she hasn't felt her baby move, and you're putting that ultrasound on the mom's belly, and in your head you're thinking, please God, please God, please God, that there be a heartbeat.
When I first started doing it, I didn't consider what the women would be going through and how that would affect me.
Everyone expects it. Every nurse can deal with a bereaved family and then they go on with their merry way and that's it. No one checks up on you, no one realizes the effects it has on you, nothing. It's just part of nursing.
One experience stands out in my mind, and I looked after a woman who delivered twins, born still, 28 weeks. And when they delivered, they were holding each other. And in the delivery there wasn't a dry eye, but it was to the point where I found myself, like I couldn't breathe. It was so overwhelming.
I remember one month we had 7 stillbirths on the floor, and one day I just lost it and I started crying. When a mother finds out that her baby's no longer alive, and like the cry and that screech, you never ever forget that.
There'd be maybe once or twice a year where I seriously have a meltdown and cry and question, why am I doing this? Why am I doing this to myself? Because I go home and I'm miserable at home. I don't talk about specific things at home as to what happened. You know, the question I get when I walk through the door is, oh, were you busy today? Yeah, and that's the end of it.
I go through different stages of grief myself. So there's the spiritual side, and where I question why, if there's a God, why is he or she doing this to this family? And then the emotional side where, you know, I get home and I just hug my kids so tight. And they're, Mom, you know? So I guess it's just something that affects me, and all of us, I think, who work with these families. It affects me very tremendously, I guess.
You do carry it home with you. You absolutely do. And for me, it was impossible not to. But thankfully, I had an understanding family.
It's been different since I've been a mother, but my pregnancy, I just remember having a horrible time with my pregnancy because I kept wondering, is my baby going to die? Like, what makes me so different? Because it could happen. It could have happened. And I think it makes me so much grateful that I have a healthy child. I'll never forget, I was taking this class when I was pregnant, and there was all these like moms around, and one mom was saying, oh, I don't want a episiotomy and I don't want this, and they're like, what do you want, Jen? I go, I just want to be alive and I want my baby to be alive. And they're like, huh? Because it's like, no, like that's what I wanted. I just wanted, I didn't care if I had a C-section, I didn't care what I had, I just wanted an alive baby.
It's kind of like you wear this sort of coat of grief that's just part of your job, and sometimes you can take it off and fold it and just put it over here, and then other times it comes back on when something's bothering you. It's hard that way, but I do think it helps you grow professionally, just being able to handle it, just being able to cope with it and to articulate and talk to your colleagues about it.
Occasionally, I've actually had to get up and leave the room or leave the clinic for a few minutes just to gather myself, because some stories are just horrendous, terrible, like multiple losses after infertility, or maybe the patient I saw before isn't planning on continuing with her pregnancy, and then my next patient is devastated because she's just lost her pregnancy, and it's very conflicting. So sometimes it does affect how I care for people, but for the most part I find that I'm fairly compassionate and am able to sympathize with, you know, many of these women that come through our clinic.
When I first started in labor and delivery, it was sort of, in a way, frowned upon to cry in front of the patient. But I always cry with the patient, and that's just me, and I'm a very emotional person, and so I guess in a way what I mean is that I can show myself to the families, and I can really show them that I'm really sorry for them.
A lot of people say, I don't know how you do it. How do you do that? And my answer is, I don't really know. I just know we're doing a good thing, but I don't know what keeps me doing this day after day.
Very early on, when I was faced with a family that had a loss, like I didn't know what to do. So I would just like go in the room and do my vitals or checks and then run back out because I didn't know what to say. And then it wasn't until I started educating myself and talking to people that I became a lot more comfortable.
I think I feel more comfortable with families who have lost a child because a lot of people don't talk about it, nurses included. And so I think I've grown in a sense where I'm at a place where I'm comfortable with it. And I feel that that's important in order to provide the best care. You know, that it's okay to cry, that it's okay to say you've lost a child, or it's okay to call the child by the child's name.
As you grow, there's a greater capacity for your families, because you know, you've had the opportunity to work through your own grief a number of times, and so then the capacity to provide for grieving families is more. That would be how I would describe it.
I would be really sad if I did give it up, because it's one of the few jobs where I've had that I go to bed the night before not dreading going to work the next day, even though I know what I'm in for. I guess deep down I know it's a good thing.
I don't want to say it becomes easier because it's still very difficult, but I think that I'm able to deal with it a little bit better now with the support of coworkers. So, you know, getting a hug from a colleague who knows that I'm looking after a patient and their family who have had a baby born still. You know, being able to go into my manager's office and just say, I just need to cry, can you cry with me? And she's always there to cry with me.
You kind of know who your colleagues are, who are on the same page and on the whole grieving issue and the comfort level. And they're a great sense of support because you can really talk about your experience if you're at work. And that helps in my personal grieving. It helps when you're working on a shift where one of your patients has experienced a loss.
And I think it's also really important to understand what the nurse is going through personally at the time. Like, we're very protective of our pregnant nurses. We try not to give them that type of situation for themselves and also for the family too.
I'll never forget, we had this situation where it was a twin birth, and the first twin it was anencephalic and was born alive but did die afterwards. And the second twin was fine. And I was working with a nurse, and then she went on to another job, and I went on to another job, and then we met up a year later, and I was like, oh my God, I'll never forget that day. She goes, me too. And we just finally were able to debrief about it, but we will always share that experience.
I think a lot of the problem is I work by myself. I'm the only nurse there. In labor and delivery, everyone cares for the family together, if it's a family going through a loss. So a lot of the nurses help each other out. So they debrief after, they all support each other. I don't really have that go-to person. My manager is great, but it's a very busy place. And so I tend not to really say a whole lot, because the feedback I usually get is, oh, but you guys are doing such a great job. And that's great. But sometimes I feel like I maybe can't always do my best.
I've learned to be comfortable with my own tears with families. And that was a really good place for me to be at, that I didn't have to hold everything back, that I could be open about my feelings of grief along with theirs.
It's changed in that it's still painful and terrible, but I'm able to come to terms with it, I guess, in a way, because I feel like I'm able to offer more to the patients now that I have more knowledge and more experience. So it's, I don't want to say rewarding because it's such a terrible thing, but I guess I just feel more comfortable being able to say how I feel and show how I feel.
I wasn't grieving in the same way because I had not walked in their shoes of losing a baby that had grown inside of me. But I could identify in some way with the loss and the grief. And so over the years, I think I grew to a place where I could be a little bit more open and share some of that, just making sure that the lines of professional and personal weren't blurred.
I have to find ways to say I'm sorry to the family that are appropriate, that don't cross the professional threshold, but they're still human, and that it's okay for them to see me cry, or to say, this is a tragic loss for you, and we are all so sorry for your loss, and this is what we offer you.
I guess I give a lot more of myself to my patients than I ever did. But I take a lot of my cues from my patients as well.
Just the sense of authentic compassion and caring, and that you weren't there just because you were on shift, but that you really cared, you know?
She was holding the baby and she named the baby. And she just said that she was crying. She just said, "I'm not a mother. I'm not a mother." And I said to her, you are a mother. I said, "You're Ruth's mother. You'll always be Ruth's mother." And while she was crying, she was stroking the baby, and she just said, "Oh," she said, "thank you so much."
There's nothing more hurtful than when somebody's with you in a time of need, or not even necessarily grief, but if you can't convey that care and compassion, you just don't want them there.
I want to do everything possible to help them. Not help them, but make this, even though it's a horrible experience, the best experience it could be for them. Like taking photographs and making sure their photographs are good photographs, and really nice handprints, and making sure that they have time with their baby. So that when I leave, I could think to myself, I did a really great job. Nothing's going to make it better, but you know, I can't speak for everyone, but I know that we try. We really do try, and we feel awful that families go through this.
Part of your job as a nurse is to mentor students and graduates and new nurses. So some of our less experienced staff are quite nervous about looking after families who are going to experience a loss. So they really need somebody who has highly developed skills to sort of say, "This is what we do. Let's talk about the what ifs, and let's work you through some situations, do a little bit of role playing, and find out what skill set and what toolbox you're going to need to help look after these clients."
I guess if it's a situation that you avoid because of discomfort, it's probably better to educate yourself, because we can't avoid it. These women have to be cared for.
A lot of the younger nurses, when asked, feel uncomfortable, or some refuse. But I think that if it was part of the orientation, then maybe they would be more comfortable.
We know the value of storytelling and sharing our personal stories. And my hunch is that it's extremely important and helpful and valuable to prepare a new nurse in starting to care for women who would have or will be experiencing loss.
We have to help students understand that the importance of helping the family see the baby for who that baby is and what that baby meant to them, and acknowledging the meaning of the loss to the family.
That it's important to show your human side, and that it's okay to cry with these families. It's okay to cry while you're preparing the baby to bring to mom. When you're doing the footprints and the handprints, it's okay to ask for help and to get hugs and to feel it, to feel the experience. I think it's very important because they're feeling it. And I feel like if the families know that you're that deeply affected as well, then they might get some sort of peace.
Individuals are all individuals, and they come to the grieving experience with personal attachments like culture and spirituality and, relationships. So I do have to be careful that I don't make too many assumptions that those I care for want to be cared for in exactly the same way.
You know, that's one thing I hear from bereaved families. They go, you could tell that no one wanted to be around us. Like, they go and do their tasks and then they leave. Like, and then that makes them feel awkward and awful too. So they don't want to talk because they know the person doesn't feel comfortable. And I'd just like to say to students, you don't have to like have the perfect thing to say. Just say, I'm sorry. And like sit there and listen and like let them tell their story, or, you know, and ask them about their baby and handle the baby. Ask them, they'll let you.
To be with the mother, to be with the parents, to learn their story, to learn their experience, to know what they're feeling, what does this baby means to them. It's their hope, it's their life, it's their future. And once that baby has been taken away from them, what is their life is like. So you get to learn that experience, and you get to witness the great part is you get to be with them through that struggle.
The impact that nurses have could be overwhelming and long-lasting, life-lasting. Like, they remember what you say, what you didn't say, and what you did.
Knowledge, I guess, makes me feel better about the way I care for them.
We're always learning, right? So what I learned from one family, like I will apply that to other families. So you're always learning. And
Well, I just want them to know I hurt too, but my hurt can be resolved, and to be able to talk about that is a really great thing.
You just feel so honored that you could take this experience that is just probably the most devastating experience that any family is going to have, and if you can make one glimmer of goodness come out of it, you just feel so privileged.